And welcome back to the Hot Lap. Potentially massive news, if you are to believe the rumours. As you can see here, Max Verstappen to Mercedes, close to a done deal, according to one F1 driver, one F1 source, reported by PlanetF1.com. Having said that, Verstappen's come out and pretty much suggested he may stay, according to another news report. So we'll definitely, most certainly get into that. Bearman, set for Red Bull. Marco has made suggestions that he's speaking to Oliver Bearman. When could he start for Red Bull? And that's going to be really interesting. Imagine that. And are Ferrari going to get... Would Ferrari even let him go? Hamilton praising Susie Wolff for going against the FIA. We spoke about yesterday about Susie Wolff making a criminal complaint against the FIA into accusing her and stressing that her and Toto Wolff were in cahoots, sharing information that they shouldn't. And Ricciardo on the criticism, particularly from Helmut Marko, coming into the Australian Grand Prix. So let's talk about this close to a deal with Verstappen. This is on PlanetF1.com, reported by Oliver Harden. Then it says, Max Verstappen to Mercedes, pretty much close to a done deal, says ex-F1 driver. So former driver Johnny Herbert, he's claimed that Max Verstappen's sensational move to Red Bull to Mercedes is pretty close to a done deal. I'm not sure how he knows, but let's carry on. So as we know, Verstappen and Red Bull stand as F1's dominant force ever since they clinched that drivers' championship in 2021. Not quite the dominant force then, but the next 2 years very much have been. So the 26-year-old, he's won 46 of the last 68 races, stretching back to the start of his maiden title winning season, with Verstappen opening his account this year with 2 consecutive wins from pole. Boring for some, I guess, unless you are a Verstappen fan. So victory at this weekend's Australian Grand Prix would see Verstappen match his own record of 10 straight wins. Now, despite holding a contract, as we know, until 2028, his future's been thrown into doubt with the saga of Red Bull, the never-ending saga of Red Bull, it seems. So Hamilton, as we know, has been announced to go to Mercedes to go from Mercedes to Ferrari in 2025. So what then? Well, according to Johnny Herbert, Verstappen's father, Verstappen's father Joth called for Horner to leave his position after the Bahrain Grand Prix. We know all about that, but Herbert has joined the calls also for Horner to resign, claiming the team could rip apart quite easily if the Christian Horner show does not come to an end soon. Okay, but the 3 times Grand Prix winner also warned Horner might force their main star out of the team if he tries to arrogantly stay put, according to Johnny Herbert. And he predicted that F1 design legend Adrian Newey could follow Verstappen out of Red Bull if the team principal remains in situ. Once again, that's not been confirmed. But Herbert, who, as we know, he spent more than a decade as a Sky F1 pundit before parting company with them at the end of 2022, he's claimed to have heard that Verstappen's switch to Mercedes is on the brink of completion. He said, I hear it's pretty close to a done deal, brokered between Max and Mercedes. Is it a power play by the Verstappen team? He said, possibly. I don't think it's the best scenario for Max. Mercedes have struggled for the last 3 years and still haven't got a good car. He went on to saying the whole shenanigans are ripping Red Bull apart, as Jos Verstappen has said. It's ripping the team apart to the extent they might well lose their biggest asset, and that is not Christian Horner. Apparently, according to Johnny Herbert, that's Max Verstappen. He said he's the only one binding everything together to allow the team to achieve what they have done over the past couple of years. Herbert believes there is a very strong chance that Verstappen and Newey will be reunited at Mercedes, this is the first I've heard, if they leave Red Bull, claiming the future of the long-serving Red Bull advisor, Helmut Marko, will have a direct impact on Verstappen's plans. Interesting stuff. I mean, Verstappen's also sort of commented on these rumours. He addresses Mercedes speculation with nice to hear from the Toto Wolff interest admission. So he's sending out mixed vibes on his Red Bull future. And as we know, the ongoing tensions at Red Bull have sparked questions over Verstappen's future with the team. Such talk fueled by Verstappen himself when senior advisor Helmut Marko suggested that he could be suspended or leave the Australian Grand Prix, or leave the Austrian outfit at the Saudi Arabian weekend. So he's quite happy, but here we go. He said he's pretty fixed, though, at Red Bull. Obviously, despite, I guess, raising an eyebrow to that interest, and this is also from racefans.com. I'm pretty fixed at Red Bull, says Verstappen. So we're getting all these mixed messages. Personally, I think he'll stay at Red Bull. He'll be silly to go. He'll stay at least until 2025. He might change in the rule set if he thinks Red Bull may not be the fastest team. And as one of the fastest guys in Formula One at the moment, he can pretty much have his say to whatever team he wants to go to, I think, at the moment. So, but Verstappen says he's pretty fixed at Red Bull amid all this speculation over whether he will see out his long-term drive with the team. The world champion, as we know, signed that deal. Marco's position was initially in jeopardy. But he said, I think there's every reason to be happy, he told the official F1 channel. He said the car is going really well. There's so many great people in the team that are constantly pushing for better results. That's what I focus on. I focus on the performance. I'm happy. And when I go home, I don't think about anything because it's pretty fixed where I am. And that's also where I want to be. And now he heads into this weekend to continue that unbeaten streak, which we've just spoken about. So, but, and here's a really interesting, this is once again it's almost like it's silly season again. Bearman set for Red Bull. Well, Helmut Marko reveals Bearman talks as RB seat rumours have been addressed. So Red Bull senior advisor Helmut Marko, he's confirmed that talks have already been held with a certain Oliver Bearman, though it appears the RB seat is not on the cards. Now, Carlos Sainz is ruled out of action following Thursday's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and as we know, the mega 18-year-old Oliver Bearman had an absolutely fantastic debut. He got pole position in the F2 race and then he raced for Ferrari. So that has generated, though, plenty of speculation over where could a permanent home for Oliver Bearman be, which for the moment seemed potentially waiting at Red Bull's second team RB, as Marko confirmed that an informative conversation has been held with Bearman while he has been part of the Ferrari ranks. However, Marko has then shut down the idea. He said with Bearman potentially in line to follow Charles Leclerc's footsteps and graduate to the Ferrari team, should his impressive progression run through, Marko said it would not be in Red Bull's best interest to develop a driver for their rival. He said we actually had an informative conversation with him, but he was already on the Ferrari Academy by then. Marko told OE24 when the Bearman to RB suggestion was brought up. It is inconceivable that we would trade him for Ferrari. But imagine this scenario. Verstappen leaves. They offer him the Red Bull contract. That'll be a bit difficult to say no to. I mean, you've got Hamilton secure at Ferrari with Leclerc for at least the next 2 to 3 years. So 25, 26. Red Bull, if they lose Verstappen, I mean, the contract, as we know, is only worth the paper it is written on. So there we go. Bearman not set for Red Bull after all. We potentially answered that question. Never say never, though. Next up, we've got Hamilton praising Susie Wolff. Yeah, he praises Susie Wolff's actions against the FIA. He said he's incredibly proud of Susie Wolff for filing that criminal complaint against the FIA, along with Formula One and Motorsport, and basically saying they lack transparency and accountability. Interesting words. So, F1 Academy Managing Director Wolff revealed ahead of the Australian Grand Prix that she has filed a complaint against the FIA. And as we know, in December, to remind everyone, the FIA started looking into what they considered was a potential conflict between Wolff and her husband Toto. That's been supposedly after F1 team bosses complained. That obviously was not the case. Now, while the matter has quieted down in public, Wolff has now taken action. She said there has still not been any transparency or accountability in relation to the conduct of the FIA and its personnel in this matter, she wrote. I feel more than ever it is important to stand up, call out improper behaviour and make sure people are held to account. While some may think silence absolves them from their responsibility, it does not. Now, Hamilton has come out in strong defence of Wolff, praising her efforts to shine a light on an organisation and sport that lacks accountability and transparency. And if you can make an argument after Abu Dhabi 2021, if anyone can suggest that, I think Hamilton's up there in the top echelon, in the top 1%. And this comes days after reports that the now suspended Red Bull female employee complained to the FIA regarding the behaviour of the team boss Christian Horner, while the governing body has also completed an investigation into claims that its own president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, had attempted to influence officiating in the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and had issues, let's say, alleged issues at Las Vegas. The 7-time world champion said, "Firstly, I'm incredibly proud of Susie. She's so brave. She stands for great values. She's such a leader." Then he went on to say, "In a world where often people are silenced, for her to be standing up sends such a great message. I love that she's taking it out of this world, finding it from outside, because there's a real lack of accountability here within the sport, within the FIA." He went on to saying things that are happening behind closed doors. There's no transparency. There is clearly no accountability. How can you trust the sport and what is happening here if you didn't have that? Big words from Lewis Hamilton. Massive criticism to the FIA. Potentially a bit of a jibe maybe to Red Bull. I mean, what does he mean? But he went on to saying, hopefully this stand that she's taken now will create change and have a positive impact, and especially for women. He said, "We're living in a time where the message is, if you file a complaint, you'll be fired." Wow, is that a jibe to Red Bull or not? I don't know. Maybe. Just make me get a drink. He said that is a terrible narrative to be projecting to the world. So especially when we're talking about inclusivity here in the sport, we need to make sure that we're staying true to the core values. George Russell added, "You trust that the leaders in the sport have the best interest with their heart than their own interests. When we don't have the facts and figures, there is no transparency. You always think there's something being hidden. That's why it's so important for the sport now to send the right message to everyone who's supporting Formula One, watching F1 and wants to be involved, that things aren't swept under the carpet." Excuse me. So, last but not least, as I'm trying not to choke, is Daniel Ricciardo. So, just cut the long story short, Helmut Marko came out with a bit of criticism at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. However, he's dismissed these concerns, saying, Marko wrote that there's a lot at stake this season for both Yuki and Daniel. Talking about Daniel's qualifying. But the Australian told outlets in relation to that, it's not annoying. He said, "The most important part of our job is the driving, but a big part of it is talking to the media. When things go well, everyone is talking positively, and when they don't talk positively. I mean, it's F1. You're only as good as your last race." That's where I looked to myself. Now, Ricciardo made his way back onto the F1 grid, hoping to get that Red Bull seat. He said, "I know I came back here because I believe I can do it. I believe I belong here. When people ask, do you have a point to prove or keep people happy, I'm here for myself because I know I can still do it. I do want to make people proud, but if someone says something, I know it already. I've told myself that, and I know what's expected. So, of course, I want to be qualifying Q3, get the results. I believe I can, but it's tight, and we are in such a midfield. In Bahrain in quali, I knew I didn't quite put the lap together. I should have, and I put my hand up for that, but that's the difference from maybe P14 to Q3. End of Q1 in Saudi, P9 to P16 was less than a tenth, so you can very quickly look like a hero or not. That's where every tenth counts, and that's where I'd look to myself first." I think we all know I'm gunning for Ricciardo to have and Piastri to have excellent home races. Wouldn't it be great if both of them made it into Q3 and both of them scored points? Piastri podium, not completely out the question, maybe a bit unlikely given Ferrari's pace. However, you never know. Anyway, if you made it to the end, thank you very much. Subscribe, that would be great. If you like and subscribe, do 2 of those things. You are a multiple F1 champion in our eyes. We'll speak to you soon. Stay tuned to all the news over the Australian Grand Prix weekend. Thank you very much.